tripping on it.
Hey everybody, my name is Chris Mullins. I had this idea earlier in the year, even before the pandemic, to maybe bring back my show in one form or another, and when I sort of went over some ideas of what I would do, I thought maybe sharing my experiences would better suit the Chris Mullins experience, as it were. So here I am in Colorado. What a hell of a trip that was. And I'd like to take this opportunity to talk to you about drugs. All the names, dates, and locations have been changed for this story, except for me. The first instance of becoming aware of drugs was within the public school and within the DARE program. I don't know what it was, what they said or did or showed, but something about their program, something left me with this absolute fear. I sort of categorized drugs, no matter the type or their effect, as long as it fit under that banner of a so-called drug. I was convinced that there must be something wrong. Well, the branding of drugs as being criminal, while true for some drugs, is not true for all of the drugs. Take marijuana, for instance. It took me so long in my life of even thinking to conceive of smoking because it had been so villainized through my life, and I was so worried about it being a drug. Throughout history, unfortunately, certain drugs have been used as justification for racial profiling and racist agendas. That the vilification of the drug was really more about who was doing it than the drug itself. And I think Jim Belushi talked about that a little on a Bill Maher not too long ago. Kudos to him for growing his own. I'd love to be in business with somebody to make a strain called the Chris Mullins Experience. I know I would smoke it. Far too often, some of the stigmas of the fears about drugs is paid more attention to than the drugs themselves. Now you find in Colorado, things like hallucinogens, like magic mushrooms as they're called, are now being used in therapy. And weed is medicinal, and started as medicinal in many states before it became recreational. This thing America criminalized for so long, with no real justification, is now found in soda form. Would you like some Bubba Kush root beer? Or perhaps some Keef Cola? So many things like this are these byproducts of this plant that for too long was unjustly criminalized. There's a lot of injustice in this world. At any point when the criminal justice system becomes a for-profit market, there's a serious problem. And too many people paid the price that don't need to, while other people are making money off of it, and it's just, frankly, it's fucking sick. These so-called illicit and illegal drugs are a great thing to slap that label on when you have other things that are perfectly legal, such as alcohol, which can be far more detrimental than many of these other drugs. This I got in Colorado at the Nature's Gift Shop. This is perfectly legal in Colorado. This is perfectly legal down the road in Rosenberg because it's CBD. Texas is taking this weird approach of testing the waters with the CBD thing. You can find CBD just about anywhere in Texas now. While CBD is all good and fine and available in all places, the thought of that maybe even 5 years ago would have been insane because of the criminal fear behind weed. That's nice. Tally-ho! From a young age, I got into Pink Floyd, and their founding member, Syd Barrett, was well known for taking too many psychedelics and going so far over the edge of his mind that he wasn't able to return. And that always to me was a cautionary tale for drugs. So when I bought into the fear-mongering of the DARE program, it just reinforced that sort of fear that there could potentially be irreversible damage. That I do not condone drug use for everyone. I don't think that even pot could work for everybody the same way it worked for me. But I wanted to share with you why I decided to start smoking in the first place and what led me to enjoy this from hating it so much or being so blind to the fact that I could enjoy it maybe. I had a fear of the reefer for so long because of this propaganda and fear-mongering that I never smoked in high school. I waited until I was probably 21 or 22 while I was married. A big part of the reason I even attempted to smoke was towards the end of my marriage. My wife wanted to smoke, and I felt very uncomfortable about it at first because I wasn't sure about how smoking would affect her, and I didn't want to be around drugs. I wanted to try it to see if it could help us bond more, and honestly, it was almost like a red pill effect of showing me the world around me and me becoming more aware of my surroundings and my lifestyle and everything. Whatever it is that connects with your synapses, that effectively helped me focus and see through my marriage, especially as it started spiraling downward. Essentially, I was eating my emotions. I feel like it was not very long after that honestly I got a divorce and moved back to Houston. Another aspect of smoking that affected me greatly, I was able to come to this place of realization that I needed to change my life and my ways because I was not eating healthy. It helped me sort of mentally focus down on the fact that I was eating my emotions and not coping with the reality around me. And it helped me lock down and start walking every day and paying attention to what I was eating and drinking and somewhat. Almost like just a connection in the synapses that was missing. Okay, so experiences. Let's talk about some experiences I've had. Once I smoked pot and enjoyed it, I was open to the idea that I might enjoy some other things. However, let me take you on a list of things I have not done. I tell people this ever so often, but I have never cocained. I have never done crack. I had a friend tell me that a video of mine on Snapchat looked a little meth-ish. I have never done meth. Just want to put that out there. I have never done DMT or mescaline or peyote. Because I have not experienced these things, I cannot speak to them to any great detail. I can tell you that I just personally don't find them necessary at this current interval of my life. Did I miss anything? Oh yes, although I do like some music with a good little beat, I've never been much of an EDM guy, and thus I've never been into the rave scene or the Molly scene or the uppers and whatever. I'm not a pill popper. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I wouldn't know. Okay, so as far as the things I have done, obviously, I am a fan. I think that this little plant has done so much good for our earth. Anywhere that has fully legalized this is done pretty well. Outside of weed, a few years ago, 2016 I believe, I tried shroom tea for the first time, which was an immaculate experience because it made me feel like a child again, in this wholly innocent way. I just want to stress how innocent the feeling is. It's so easy to have a prejudice against a drug without ever trying it if you leave it in the label of a drug, which has always been this fear-driven thing. If you go to the fundamental science of what it is doing to your brain and the chemical reactions, then maybe we would learn something. If people had more of a conversation about drugs and trying to move past these stigmas and learn something and grow and adapt as a society, hey, if we could evolve, that would be great. You might hear this a lot with people that have done drugs, but it is good to be outdoors and it's good to experience nature. It's almost as though the way we live as humans and the way technology has taken over our lives pushes us further and further from nature. I keep reiterating this, but we need the earth way more than it needs us. So I tried this shroom tea. Instead of being in nature, I was indoors and watching a nature documentary. A common thread with psychedelics is this sort of, it's almost an impossibility to stop laughing and to stop giggling and stop smiling and stop feeling good. It's indescribable. It is literally something you have to experience for yourself. But for me, it was like an injection of every positive feeling I've ever had through my body and mind and soul. To criminalize or to even prejudice that without knowing is wild, but it just tells you how much a hold other people have on your own opinions. You have to truly gain your own opinion for yourself, but you do have to be willing to try to gain that opinion. You can't just... So, I don't know if it's kicking in or not, because I don't know how that works. I'm watching this nature documentary, and then I just start giggling, and then I just can't stop giggling. And then it's like suddenly I want to be outside. My whole being felt the need to connect with the sun and just be, but I'm in an apartment complex. I do remember riding down the street with my then girlfriend's roommate who was listening to this eerie church music. It was like the most sinister church chapel music. It made me start feeling clenched up inside, which in turn made me just sort of like close off because it just felt creepy and eerie. And then my mind suddenly triggered, you're probably just tripping and this is all. I asked if they could please kindly change the radio station because it was starting to make me feel a little odd. To put on a The Doors song, The Spy, which is a fucking great tune. I started feeling that song and singing it immediately, which was great. I just remember the sensations of feeling whole and feeling just utter love for everything and existence. And there is sort of a benchmark in that. The sensation of feeling such immaculate joy can do so many wonders for your life and your mind and bring you from a dark place to a very bright and positive place. I also had this fear of having a bad trip and not knowing what that would be, of course, judging that it would be something I couldn't fathom and it would just, detriment my soul. I didn't know. The first time I tried acid, it was a bad trip, but not in the way I could have ever fathomed, if that makes sense. So the first time I tried acid, I was at a party. I was not even aware acid was there or happening. Later, someone brings out a tray that just had individual tabs. They offered it to me and I was reluctant because I had been drinking and I was not sure if I should go into something that was so heavy while I was already under the influence of a different thing. I knew that there might be a problem. Somebody was there who said, you can drink as much as you want. Because I already had a few, I was easily influenced to say, okay, let's go for it. I would say much like shrooms, there was a bit of a moment of just utter laughter and just pure joy that was uncontainable almost. Unfortunately, it was followed shortly thereafter with the feeling of an oncoming headache. It warped into the feeling of an oncoming hangover, and it felt like I was feeling this joy and levity that can't be explained, but then it was like this grasp of hangover started weighing on me and boring down into me. So once I started feeling like I was having a hangover, it started turning south, and I started feeling like, well, I'd like to be alone to try to get rid of this. I had another pair of Sennheiser headphones with me that I was able to block in my music, and the music, such a beautifully indescribable experience, like time itself slowed down while these words came out. On top of it was this grinding headache hangover, and it was getting worse and worse, and then it was just unavoidable. It was there and it was not leaving. And I kind of dealt with that all night. Remember going in this truck at one point and trying to get comfortable and listen to more music, but it did not make the headache go away, unfortunately. Last year, I had the privilege and honor of working on a local indie production called Acid Test. Look them up. It sort of had me interested in maybe attempting to try that again with no alcohol, no inebriation on top of going into something. Earlier this year, I did in fact try it again. And it was simply one of the most beautiful experiences I can honestly tell you I've ever had in my existence. I don't know if I've ever been this appreciative of life and grateful for everything that I've ever experienced. I hope if you ever decide to do something that you can form your own opinion of it without being influenced by what the outside world thinks. And ultimately, if I had never tried to step outside my boundary, I would have never discovered that. Don't judge a book by its cover. Bring on the peyote, I don't mind. Of all the drugs I have taken, I feel like alcohol by far outweighs the detrimental effects of any of them.
Just saying on the fish.